And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 435, presented by the CLNS Media Network. If you have time, please subscribe to our Bruins Ringside YouTube channel. We have pretty much daily content between Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat, Pucks with Haggs. We have covered every step of the way this Bruins offseason. So follow along with us over at YouTube. And if you don't like YouTube, you can subscribe and follow along on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your hockey podcasts. Episode is also brought to you by Prizepicks, the best way to win this playoff season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, that's code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup. My name is Conor Ryan, and once again, we are joined by the esteemed, the ever knowledgeable Ty Innocent of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Ty, how you doing?
What's going on? How are we doing today?
Doing well. Ty, I'm actually excited because we actually have something of note to talk about. We're not talking about hypotheticals.
Yes.
Jay
Leach going to Hartford.
You read my mind, baby. No, we actually have a juicy topic. I don't think any of us were expecting the Elliot Friedman tweet to pop up on Thursday that Dylan Larkin, captain of the Detroit Red Wings, requested a trade. He wants out. He's like, fuck this. I'm out of here. I don't blame him. To which immediately, I'm sure Bruins fans, Bruins media, like fans and media from a lot of other NHL teams that could use a center, all speculated on whether or not their team could be the ones that could be in the running for a disgruntled Dylan Larkin and what is going to be a shifting offseason, it feels like, where feels like ever since maybe like the Matthew Tkachuk trade, there's been a lot more of the players being empowered to kind of dictate where they want to go or just saying they want out of their current spot. So we're going to focus primarily this entire episode on Dylan Larkin and the Bruins. But just to start off, where's your thought on it? Do you like the player? Should the Bruins be interested? Should they be interested to a degree? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, I think to a degree is probably the right way to put it. I mean, listen, if I'm putting it on like a pecking order, so to speak, I want Robert Thomas, and if I can't get Robert Thomas, I want Jason Robertson, and if I can't get Robert Thomas or Jason Robertson, then sure, let's call him Dylan Larkin and see what he wants and see if that's possible. Ultimately, I like the player. It's just, is he elite? You know, like I think you can love a player and you can appreciate everything they do, and he's a guy that I really appreciate. I thought he was really good for Team USA and the Four Nations and the Olympics. I thought in that role, what he was doing, I thought was really impressive. But is he elite? I don't know. He's never had 35 goals in a year. He's never had 80 points in a season. Like, there's a cap on the amount of very good players you can have, right? I think especially for the trade hauls that these guys are now going for. And as we say this here, recording on June 5th, the price paid when he's inevitably traded is not going to be the price that we're talking about today. I fully acknowledge that. However, if it is, I think you can and you should aim higher if you're the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I tend to agree as far as like I think the Bruins should be in the mix. They should. Again, it's not often you have a legitimate center, right? You can argue over whether he's like an actual 1C, right? Like to what Don Sweeney said last month, like there's not even 32 of those in the league. So is he an okay first line center, but on like a real cup contender, he's an awesome 2C? You know, he's almost like the tier above like Charlie Coyle, where like Charlie Coyle ideally is an awesome 3C, but like could be a 2C when you need, right? I almost feel like Larkin's a step up where he can play higher in the lineup, but in the ideal spot, he's probably not exactly that guy. I mean, I really like the player. I like what he brings. He brings a lot of speed, skill. Again, he's also turning 30 in a month or so. So you have to be cognizant of like the speed is usually the first thing that goes. But if you're just looking at the next 5 years and he's a guy that you put in next to David Pastrnak, makes sense. Like in a vacuum, the fit is there. It's just, I think to your point, it's going to, I think, be what it's actually going to cost to acquire him. Right. And I can't see Steve Yzerman wanting to trade him to the Bruins or a team in the Atlantic. Maybe it's a situation like Taylor Hall where he's dictating this and there's 3 teams and Boston's one of them and they make a compelling offer, but also Steve Yzerman, who's kind of a tough nut to crack, right? He's had extended kind of stalemates with his own players in terms of like contract negotiations, stuff like that. He could very well be like, well, we got you on a contract for 2 years. Like, we're not in a rush. Kind of like the Eichel situation where like Eichel would want to have been traded for a couple of years. and they're like, we're not budging until we get a good return. And again, like you got some pieces out of it, but I think clearly Vegas won that trade, but it wasn't like also like Eichel was dictating where he was going or something like that. Nor did Buffalo immediately trade him when he's got that contract. So, yeah, I think it kind of comes down to like the Bruins should be interested. It's a guy that you should be, you know, giving them a call to see what you can get from that player. It's just what the cost is going to be. If it's like Haggs, like I wouldn't do that, right? And you hear the things like, well, if you're gonna hold on to all the prospects, you're gonna be fucked. I'm like, well, I'd be willing to give up Haggs for like the right return. And it's like if you want to tell me that you could get Larkin, and I think you would have to have a lot fall your way of like Larkin influencing, like wanting to go to a team like Boston. If you could give up like, Zaka, a first, maybe two, I don't know, one of your wings, Zellas or something like that, or even like maybe Letourneau, then I'd still be on the fence with that. But you could keep Haggs. I would probably do it if it's like Haggs or bust. I'd rather. I'm not saying that Haggs is off limits. If you could get like on the negotiating table with Alex Steen, who's now running the Blues, I believe.
Yeah,
be like, all right, Haggs is the
a rookie GM, by the way. I like trading with rookie GMs for the record. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So if that's the case, I would be like, I gotta be bold. Shit. All right. Like I would do it for that type of player. If you can get Larkin for value below that, while still giving up assets, I don't think it's not necessarily like you're giving up like I've seen some people mention, a first, Middlestat, Lori, and Potram. Like that's not going to get Dylan Larkin. Like that. Like that's
my junk drawer.
Yeah, exactly. No. We got a string of Jan you can look at too.
Yeah.
No.
Jesus.
So like that's not going to be the case. But if you can acquire him without giving up, without like depleting the entire farm system or Haggs, I'd be willing to do it. I just don't know how realistic that is. It's probably like how I'm viewing it.
Right. And again, I think I just go back to, I feel like, touching on your point off the jump about guys being more empowered and emboldened to want out of their current cities. I mean, we might be a year away from McDavid and Draisaitl time bomb, right? And there's that. There's Nico Hischier. There's the two guys I mentioned, Robert Thomas and Jason Robertson. Like, if you got the chips for one big swing, and that's where I think the Bruins are, because I do think the Bruins, they're itching to make a move, but they also are beginning to make peace with what we've talked about in the past, where you have to make your draft picks. You can't keep trading them all. It's really hard to build a sustained model if you're never picking in the first round. I mean, Jesus, look at Vegas right now, and look at Carolina. Look at how they built those teams. Vegas, I know, the expansion team, but look at the players on that roster. A whole lot of first round picks on that roster, right? And so I just feel like if you're going to be doing that, you can take that swing. 30 years old is not when I want to be buying in. I'd rather be buying in on Thomas at 26, Robertson at 27. Like, I just feel like it's kind of the same thing I felt about like Rasmus Anderson, where like I like the player, but man, you bring in a 31-year-old defenseman to put with your other 30-year-old players, you're really hyper focused in on this window right now. And you better hope that window hits, because if it doesn't, oh boy, I want to go younger with a big swing. And I feel like that's where the Bruins kind of have to be. And going younger means paying more, but I've made peace with paying the freight. It's got to be the right kind of asset, right? And there's still got to be enough tread on the tires. And I think Dylan Larkin, like he missed games late down the stretch for Detroit, and they were playing for their lives, right? And so I like so much about what he does. You mentioned the speed. He also wins faceoffs. He gets to really good ice as a scoring threat. I love all of that. I just hate 30 years old. I just don't love it. I think
he was like 28, right? Yeah,
right.
It changes the whole complexion. It's a year or two, but that's the thing.
Right. And are you bringing in Dylan Larkin and shedding Elias Lindholm? Because if you're not shedding Elias Lindholm, okay, well, now you're married to two centers that are 30 years or older, and both of whom are making $8 million a year. Like, that's tough, man. That's a really tough thing to kind of saddle yourself to and hope it works out, and hope Father Time, doesn't come for Larkin the way it's clearly come for Lindholm in his back right now.
Yeah. And it's also, it depends on what you're giving up to. If you want to marry yourself to Larkin and Lindholm, but you can convince yourself like, hey, like Larkin's gonna still be. We think he's a top line center. Like again, that's maybe the Bruins' perspective. They're talking themselves into it with that trade, but whatever. You say, all right, he's got like Lucas Raymond, but he hasn't had David Pastrnak. We think he can be an 80-point guy, and that you believe that. Like you're still, I think, like lowering your window, because I think if you're meeting what I think Larkin's going to go for, it's including, I think, one of Letourneau or Haggs. Like I actually do think like Zacha would be an appealing trade chip, because I don't know if like Detroit's really blowing it up. I don't know what the fuck they're really doing over there, because
nobody knows.
They've been a mess. But it's like one of the few teams where you've had a lot of discourse over the last like week about, could you flip Zacha for a top 10 pick, right? You hear the reports about Winnipeg and Seattle. Like, one, I don't think Zacha himself is going to get that for you. And also, I don't know if Zacha is going to waive his no trade to go to Winnipeg or Seattle. Detroit might be more realistic, right? And like it might depend on what Detroit values out of that player, which, like, if you look at just like pure value, obviously Zacha is going to be a free agent, but guy coming off a 30-goal, 65-point season, you replace him, take a slight downgrade with Larkin, but a little bit younger, and you're also getting more than just Zacha, right? If you're able to parlay that without like giving up Haggs or even Letourneau, which I don't think is realistic, I'd be all for it. I just don't think that's what Steve Yzerman, I don't think it's going to move him unless it's like you're getting a legitimate blue chip prospect back. And like I can try to navigate around that where it's Zacha and everything to avoid that, and you're giving up, maybe it's like Zellers or Simpson with some other high end talent or a first round pick or two. But still, I don't know if that's really realistic, knowing full what you said earlier about these trades are never as bad as they were. We thought Mark Stone was going to take DeBrusk in like 3 firsts, and then like they got junk. They got complete dog shit off of that trade. So look at this new report about Matthew Nyes. Like, if you're Toronto, how the fuck are you not getting like Reinbacher or Hayes or out of that reported trade? Like, what are we doing?
Right. It's absolutely bananas. I mean, and I think it's especially different with like, okay, like, listen, I'm not as down on the Bruins as a lot of people are. It may sound like I am sometimes, but I do think they have a pretty decent structure between McAvoy, Pastrnak, and Swayman, and then you're bringing in Haggs, you have Minton. Like, I think you got a pretty steady foundation.
You're a realist.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be.
I think, however, like, if you're Dylan Larkin, aren't you kind of like, yeah, you got a good team, but you finished like 7 points higher than Detroit, and you had superhuman goaltending. Like, you might regress. I don't know. I might be in the same position I'm in right now this time next year. And so that's the other part of it too. Like I think with Larkin, I think it may be like, it pains me to say, because God, I'm so sick of this. I feel like he's going to say, I want to go to Vegas, Dallas, Florida, Tampa, Colorado. Like, those are the 5 I want to go to. And we're all going to go, oh my God, enough. I'm so sick of these same 5 teams. But like, that's what it feels like that might be for a player like that. Whereas these other guys we're talking about, the Thomas, the Robertsons, it may be more about, okay, who's going to empower me? Who's going to give me the role I want? And who's going to pay me, right? Like, and Robertson might be about getting paid and feeling like you're a driving force on that team. For Thomas, it may be about playing with a superstar like David Pastrnak, right? Which, again, I wrote about this today. Like, the dirty little secret here is that the Bruins have been trying to send out feelers at the league being like, anyone want to come play with Pastrnak? Look at what we have here. Come on. You want to come play with him, right? Like, we got an opening here. Lindholm is not that guy. You want to be that guy? Like, they're kind of hoping that somebody looks at that and says, yes, I want to go there. Like, that's what, to your point you mentioned earlier, like, you have to be like that now. Guys have to, you almost have to hope that a guy wants to come to your city, right? And then when he does, you strike. And so, yeah, I think to your point, I think a trade with the Red Wings, though, like, to bring it back to what you were saying, a trade with Detroit has to be like a mix of futures and ready to go NHL players, because Yzerman is, to a certain degree here, GMing for his job. I know he's a star and I know he's a legend in Detroit, but the Yzer plan has not worked out. They have not lured free agents. They have not won trades. I think there's a lot of blowback now about them not getting Quinn Hughes or not getting whoever else they were rumored to be in the mix for this past that. There was some other Robert Thomas. They were in on Robert Thomas as well. Didn't happen, right? And now Dylan Larkin wants out because of those things, right? So Yzerman is in a position here where he has to really win the trade while also not throwing everything right now out the window.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. We'll talk more about, I think, maybe the warning signs of the Bruins of like not following in Detroit's footsteps of where they are, right? Where it's like, oh shit, like what's their next step? Holding on to assets maybe for too long or not being decisive enough. We'll talk more about that. And we'll talk more about maybe, again, how the Bruins could pivot off of maybe a Larkin move, anything like that. But before we do that, Ty, let's take a quick break here from our good friends over at Prizepicks. The NBA Finals are here, but the action doesn't stop when the confetti falls and the NBA crowns a champion because it's a star-studded, scorching summer of sports. Women's basketball and baseball are heating up. We've got the world's biggest soccer tournament on American soil and the first ever MMA fight on the White House lawn. Make your picks for all these events and more this summer on Prizepicks, America's #1 sports picks app. I think I'm going to get into soccer this summer with Prizepicks. They're offering everything from group stage winners to goals scored. I'm excited to watch the big stars from countries like Argentina, Brazil, France, in the U.S., and win money while doing it. What's cool is that I can stack game winners from soccer, NBA, the W, and baseball, and hockey on top of my player picks for even bigger payouts. So now there's even more ways to play and win big when I get my picks right. I can make all my picks in the same app with Prizepicks, America's #1 sports pick app. Prizepicks is available in all 50 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. And it's not just soccer because legacies are on the line in the 2026 NBA Finals. Get in on the action with the biggest NBA games of the season and make your picks on everything from points to rebounds to dunks, three-pointers, and fantasy score before the NBA champion is crowned. Prizepicks is a preferred partner of the NBA. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in Prizepicks. For hockey on Saturday, I've got Jack Eichel for more than 20 and a half minutes in Game 3 and Shane Gostisbehere for more than 0.5 points. That Carolina power play might be heating up just a little bit. And for hoops, give me Jalen Brunson for more than 25 and a half points, Landry Shamet for more than 16 and a half points, rebounds, and assists, and Wemby, of course, for more than 11 and a half rebounds. So download the Prizepicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, a preferred partner of the NBA. Shout out once again to our good friends over at Prizepicks. Yeah, Ty, I think you look at like where Detroit's at, and I almost feel like, you know, what they've got to at this point of how they've led up to this moment where they've had this, you know, they tore it down to the studs completely, blew it up after waiting kind of too long to blow it up initially, which is like the one thing I think the Bruins didn't do is they just waited too long. Is like they at least like did 25 in the trade deadline. You started that process, which again, if you're one of the few teams that's willing to wave the white flag, you can get a lot of returns and assets off of that. So they didn't do that as far as how Detroit messed up initially, but the fact you're out the spot where, you know, they've been trying to build through free agency and getting a lot of like okay players, but not needle movers, right? Like
Andrew Kopp, come on down.
Yeah. And it's like you look at even like the decor, it's like they've got like all these guys signed that are like 33 and above. Like you got Sider, sicko, awesome. But then it's like Ben Sherratt, you got Justin Falk, which yikes thing. Again, Bruins not trading and giving up assets this trade deadline. Smart move. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like you look at what Detroit has done. Maybe one thing the Bruins should heed moving forward is Detroit has had multiple off ramps here where they could have parlayed all of their picks and prospects into win now help. They were linked to, as you said earlier, to Robert Thomas. They were heavily linked to Quinn Hughes, right? And what you heard, and it's what's been like a vocal thing of frustration from even like Dylan Larkin mentioning this, is like they haven't been decisive enough or they've coveted their prospects too much. And it's not to say that you had to give up Mo Sider for Quinn Hughes, right? Obviously, like that wasn't going to be the case. But you had some guys like, you know, Simone Edvidson or like Nate Danielson, who's like the 9th overall pick, who hasn't really popped yet. It's like this is now the time to move those guys if you're trying to help out a core that has a 28, 29-year-old Dylan Larkin. Like Sider's just entering his prime. Lucas Raymond, Alex DeBrincat, who's only signed for one more year. Like, I think you're seeing a team that gets kind of so wrapped up in like their cupboard of draft picks and prospects that when there's win now help there right for you, you got to seize that opportunity. Look at like Minnesota now. Like they're a team that they've maybe accelerated their window, but I don't think they regret the Quinn Hughes trade, right? Like
Right.
I think you have to be if you're the Bruins, and I think it doesn't just mean that like, all right, that means you give up the farm for Dylan Larkin, but it means that once we talk about, we see it on like, social media where people are tossing out trade rumors and it's or trade proposals, but like, well, like, no, I want Robert Thomas. And then people are like, well, you have to give up James Higgins plus for him. They're like, oh, I'm not doing that. You might have to. And like, I probably would. Like, that's the thing. I think if you're the Bruins, you need to, they've done, I think, a good job the last year or two of restocking their pipeline. You got a lot more options out there. You got a lot more draft picks you can use. It's being smart with it, but also not being so beholden to it that if there is a clear-cut guy that moves the needle, to your point, Robert Thomas, who would be an 85-point center here for the next 6+ years. Jason Robertson will give you 40 goals. Like, those are the guys that, even though it's going to hurt, you got to cash in those chips if they're available for you. And I think that the Bruins need to learn that lesson because Detroit, look where they're at now, where these guys are either cashed or they're past that window.
Yeah, I mean, look at the David Pastrnak comment after Game 6 as an example of that, right? Where he kind of says, like, I'm 30 years old here, and I want to get back to competing for Stanley Cups. Like, we can laugh at the Red Wings and Steve Yzerman right now, but Pastrnak might be a year or two away from that himself, where he's like, I haven't been to the Cup since 2019. I want to get back there before I'm 35. Like, I need to go somewhere else. And you bring up Minnesota. It's a great point because, like, they're not saying, oh God, we traded 4 assets, 4 first-round pick equivalents, and we got Quinn Hughes, because they just won their first playoff series in like 11 years, and Hughes was a big part of that, right? And so you can see the vision if you're a Joel Eriksson Ek or you're a Kirill Kaprizov or a Matt Boldy, right? Like, you're like, oh, all right, we got Quinn Hughes. We're making moves here. This is good. Like, you do owe it to your group at a certain point to kind of make those moves. It's just for the Bruins, it's like, I think teams can be obsessed with the cupboard, and I agree. Like, you can have 20 prospects, but you gotta assume that half of them aren't going to work out the way you envisioned, right? But do you have enough in the cupboard right now for the Bruins, right? Like, that's something that, like, I think is a legit debate. Like I'm probably higher on Dean Letourneau than most people, or I'm higher on James Higgins than most people because I just see the skill and I see the speed, and I'm like, damn. When he gets bigger, when he gets more accustomed to how this game works, like, this is going to be great. I also acknowledge that, those players could both be, Ryan Spooner and who else? Like
Brian Boyle, like, that's what the turn ends up being. Good player, but not Tage Thompson.
If I said to you, hey, you can get Dylan Larkin, but you got to trade the next Brian Boyle, you're like, yeah, trade the next Brian Boyle. What's wrong with you? But this is part of the equation that, like, I think the Bruins are higher on their prospects than a lot of people are, right? But you got to figure out, we talked about this before, you got to figure out who's part of the equation and who's trade fodder, right? Like, you have classes of within your prospect ranks where you're like, we like this guy's a keeper. This guy, not so much. This guy, we know enough to know that we could probably swindle somebody, right? What you want to avoid is what you're talking about. Detroit, where guys are either wasting away in the minors, and the whole league knows they kind of stink now, right? Which I think the Bruins have done with Fabian Lysell and other guys in the past. Like, I think, like I know this is so off topic here. That's why I'm pro trading Mason Lohrei this summer. I think it's valuably better now after a +17 season playing the right side than it will be next year. I just do.
Yeah.
Given the Bruins track record here, I feel like his value right now will be better than his value next summer, right? Yeah. And so, like, that's part of the equation for the Bruins, where I think with guys like Letourneau and guys like Minton and guys like Patra, like, you gotta, all right, are they here or are they going out the door? I think you got to figure that out now. I don't want another year of Patra not making the team out of camp, going down to Providence and putting up 48 points. Like, that does nothing for anybody. Like, and so to your point, like, you gotta not hoard all the treasure. You gotta make a trade, right? And so I think this summer there should be room for a big trade. It's just, if I'm going all out, I'm going all out. I'm not going all out for a move that hyper locks me into a 3-year window. I want a move that locks me into a 5 or 6 year window.
Yeah. I almost feel like if, like, the true, like, Robert Thomas deal is not on the table, right? Like, just say like St. Louis, like, you know what? Like, screw it. Like, no, we're just gonna keep him. We played well down the end of the year, and look, it's fully within their right. Unless Robert Thomas is just like, I'm out of here. Like if one of those trades is not going to be out there, and it's like, all right, we either revisit Larkin and we still have to give up a lot for him. Like, I don't know. I this might be a bold take, and you can call me a big dumbass with this. I'd be, if I'm like trying to make a move that like covers my bases and like I want to make a trade without giving up all those assets, I'd like be more reticent to do like the Elias Pettersson like Hronik deal, where it's like you might be able to offload some of your shit contracts for a team that is just going in the tank. I don't know if you're able to offload Lindholm. That'd be the best case scenario. I would drive out to Vancouver if that was the trade. But if you're trying to like punch a lottery ticket with a guy who maybe he's not the 100-point guy he was a few years ago, but like if he's a 65, 75-point guy, which is kind of like what Dylan Larkin is now, but could be an 80-point guy, plus you get like Hronik. And if you do that trade, I don't think you're giving up Haggs. You might not even give up like Letourneau. Maybe you do. But like you're not necessarily selling the farm, and you're getting a potential top-line center and a guy in Hronik who fixes your problems. Like I'd rather pursue that, where maybe do that trade, and it's a lot of risk. I get people who are like, I don't want to go anywhere near Elias Pettersson, rather. I'd rather like revisit that as an option where you're able to potentially bring help down the middle, a guy who could bounce back. Maybe he's not. You might be able to dump some of your shitty contracts to at least alleviate some of what that cap hit is. You might be able to pry Hronik, and also you might check all those boxes off without giving up 3 firsts or Haggs or like maybe Letourneau. I don't know. But like you're not like depleting your entire farm system while doing it. Like I'd be maybe more reticent towards that than, all right, Larkin's the only guy out there, so that's the option. Like shit, if you do that, you could still flip Haggs for another impact guy if you think you could do it. Right? So I don't know. Like Pettersson still scares me. I think it scares a lot of people a lot more, but I almost feel like if you're trying to be bold but also creative and willing to take risks, I might lean towards like Vancouver as an option more than like Detroit in this kind of B tier of like trades that maybe have more risk, but you're not necessarily completely putting yourself in an awful spot if it works out.
Yeah, one thing I'm curious about is like, how do they weaponize what they currently have, and or can they? Right, like they're in a position where they can strike on an Anaheim or on a Dallas or any of these teams that are kind of tight against the cap or have big contracts due, and they realize they can't keep all those guys, right? Like Anaheim, we've talked about Zellweger, we've talked about McTavish. Dallas, we've talked about Jason Robertson. I mean, I'd even talk about Maverick Bourque, right? Like, do they want to sell high on him while they can? It's pretty obvious, I think, that they're probably going to have to trade a guy like Ilya Lyubushkin. Could you buy low on a player like that? I wouldn't hate that as a third line banger on your back end, right? Third pairing banger, rather. So like, I just feel like there's, you sort of look at where they are. Like I agree with you. I just feel like I want to weaponize what you can take on, right? Versus like it's so hard, right? Like I want to be out of the Elias Lindholm contract like right now. If I could do it right now, I would. I don't even care about the return. It's just I feel like they're in a position right now where they could kind of say like, hey, we'll give you Lohrei and Zacha, and you give us, player X. That player is you want to win, you want to compete now. This is more about Anaheim and like Dallas than a Vancouver. But like you're almost able to like say like, you can't pay him, we can pay him. We can give you 2 guys that can help you that are already under contract that like can contribute. Like that's kind of what I want them to explore. Pettersson just scares the crap out of me because of how old he is. I mean, I'm sorry, because of how long the contract goes and how expensive it is. Like I don't know if they're that desperate yet, right? Like I'd almost wonder too, like if they were that desperate, would they go with someone like Huberdeau over Pettersson? Where it's like, it's not as expensive, I don't believe, or it might be, I can't remember. But like, it's a guy that like they might be like, just put him with Pastrnak, he'll be fine. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like really fascinating because I also wonder if the dynamic of now you're seeing a lot of other centers being mentioned in trade rumors, where it's now everyone's looking at Larkin. Everyone's looking at, like, I've heard, I think, like, Matt Barzal, there's been rumors like the last week now about him, which I know he's not really like a true maybe center now, but still, I think a lot more people have eyeballs towards that guy. And Vancouver's like, guys, we're still here. You guys, anyone want him? Like, guys, we'll take a contract or two. I almost feel like if you're the Bruins, and again, it's what we've mentioned earlier in this offseason. Like, I think any moves the Bruins going to make, it's going to be one where you're like, okay, I could see it, but that could really go freaking sideways on this team. Like, that's one where it's like almost like, all right, we're assuming a lot of risk here, but if we're able to package a lot of shit, we dump some of our bad contracts, we potentially get Hronek out of it too, which is like you'd have to give up more. That's like where you would actually give up assets in that deal, but it gives you a 27-year-old first line center, maybe. And Hronek, and also you're not giving up as much, right? That's the thing. Like, you could, roll that die, right? Give up, clear off some money, but also you're not, I don't think, giving up Haggs and Letourneau and, the Toronto 28 first or something like that. Maybe I'm also just undershooting how much like Vancouver values that guy, but I feel like his value is tanking. The market's shifting where it's like, I think Vancouver's just desperate to move off that money, or they're going in the tank anyway, so they can take a contract that's a little bit lighter. I don't know. Like, I just feel like that's, if you're the Bruins and you're trying to address a lot of needs, which is what they're doing without necessarily selling the farm, I do wonder if that's a move that they do explore. And that one I feel like might be even more appealing than like Larkin. Right? Like that, at least that's how I'd view it,
No, I totally get it. Like I think it all comes back down to like, how sold is Pastrnak on what you currently have? Right? Like, that's a conversation that like I think you have to have between now and the start of the offseason. Like, what do you think we need? Hey Charlie, hey David, hey Jeremy, what do you guys think we need? Like, you're the three pillars here. I think if you
get on the phones.
Right. But I think if you empower those players to kind of say like, hey, what do you want? Right. And then you go out and try to get that done for them. I understand Don is the GM. They're the players, right? Like, people say that you can't have the players running the franchise. However, if you let them be heard and then you go out and acquire that player and it doesn't work out, you kind of say, hey man, we did what you guys wanted. Like, this is what you wanted. Right. I think that was something that Bergeron was kind of good at, right? Bergeron and Chara were kind of good at saying, like, we need this, we need that. Didn't always work out. Nick Foligno is a great example of that. Foligno was a Bergeron recommendation.
Yeah.
It didn't necessarily work out, but they empowered the player to say, hey, these are your final years. These are your contending years. What do we need? Oh, we need another voice in the locker room. All right, let's bring in Foligno. Like, I think that can go a long way, right? And that can sort of shape what we're talking about here, the kind of swing they do take. I think if it's Pastrnak being given the keys, he's saying, go get Robert Thomas, go get Jason Robertson, go get somebody like that. I feel like if it's McAvoy, it may be more willing to bring in a distressed asset and say, no, we can build him up. We can fix him. It's just the personality types I feel like between those two players, right?
Yeah.
And I not to say that Pastrnak is like, he doesn't want to bring people along, because he clearly does. I just feel like after dragging Lindholm for a whole year, he's probably like, can I just get a legit person to help me? And so I'm not dragging guys around for 82 games and a playoff round.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it works out great, but you give up, distressed assets, or you move off some contracts to do Pedersen and Hronek. You don't give up Haggs, and you flip them for Robert Thomas. You got your two C's.
Right. Like,
I mean, that's the thing though, is like, that's HF Board's delirium, and like, that's not realistic. But I also would, if you were to do a trade like that with Vancouver, where you're not giving up Haggs and Letourneau and all those picks, and it still gives you like multiple bullets in the chamber to then try to get someone else. Like, at that point, you're like, all right, like, we're living and dying by what Pedersen does with these guys. Like, you know what? Like, Dallas, do you want Haggs? We'll take Robertson. Like, at that point, like, you then can move those guys if you're really kind of setting yourself on that one path. Like, it's not just that I'm keeping all these like blue chip prospects for the sake of keeping them. It gives you much more options down the road to flip them for something else if you really want to get aggressive. Like, that's also,
And if you were to trade, like, I think if you were to trade a Letourneau or a Haggs for a Thomas or a Robertson, and it doesn't work out, you're kind of saying, well, We tried. Like you can't project that, right? Like
Yeah.
one guy, Robertson, has the 8th most goals in the NHL since 2021. Robert Thomas has 2 seasons of at least 80 points and 60 assists. If those guys don't work out at 26 and beyond, that's almost out of your control because you're like,
then
well,
you're cursed.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like every
sorry.
indication, every indication was that it would work out, and it didn't. So whatever, I'm gonna get fired, but I can't project that actually happening.
Yeah, you just walk into the press conference, you got a big boombox just playing White Flag by Dido. Be like, what do you want me to do, guys? Like,
right,
I did my
exactly.
best.
Right, exactly.
And that's why I think, like, if Thomas is available and you give up Haggs for him, it's like, well, if that doesn't work out, barring like crazy injury, Thomas like tears his knee up or something. It's like the Blake Wheeler Peverly trade. It's like, well, Haggs became a 90-point guy. It's like, well, yeah, like Thomas was also a 90-point guy for the next 6 years, and you won a cup in 2030. Like, okay,
right.
Like that's how it kind of works out. Whereas if you give up like Haggs per se for Larkin, it's like, well, you got a really good player, but it didn't move the needle enough. You were still missing that one piece, and then Haggs is a 90-point guy with Detroit down the road. You're like, shit.
Right.
That's I think why I wouldn't move him for that type of player.
No, exactly. And there is an element here of like that risk. You got to figure out who you are a believer in and who you're kind of like, we like him out of it. It's like grading guys, right? Like one guy's an A, one guy's a B. You're going to trade the B, like over the A. And I think, the Bruins, again, they like what they have. It's just, I think they have to avoid thinking that these guys are bulletproof, right? Like I'm more willing to trade Letourneau than I am Haggs. But if it's a 26-year-old established star in the league, then I'm listening on either guy, maybe even both, if it makes sense. I just feel like you're in a weird spot here where you got to make sure your star players are happy. You got to make sure that you're contending. I think you're getting terrific goaltending out of Swayman. I don't worry about him in the playoffs, right? I worry about how you get to the playoffs. And it comes back to what Cam said. They need more talent. You need more ways to win a game for 1 through 84. You need more scoring pop. You need more guys that can take over a game, take over a shift, really flip a game on its head. I think the Bruins did a great job working with what they had a year ago. But if they're going to step forward, they're going to have to make a trade, and that trade is going to make them uncomfortable. It's just what level of discomfort is Don Sweeney willing to go to? I said this last time we recorded, but like he's been really good at making the easy trade. Orlov, that's easy. I know they need a defenseman. Go get a defenseman. Bertuzzi. Oh, you lose Hall and Foligno. All right, bring this kid in. Like Taylor Hall, Hampus Lindholm. These are easy trades to make at the end of the day. It's the trade where you're giving up something that might hurt you. Like he hasn't made a lot of those. I think the last one that you can say that he made that actually I think really hurt was probably the Rick Nash trade. And even that, they were finding a way to get rid of 2 players they didn't want in Bolesky and Spooner. They got rid of Lindgren, they got rid of first-round pickers they didn't want to do, but they did it, right? Like, they haven't made a trade where they're, like, openly acknowledging, shit, this guy could be a 70-point player, and this may bite us in the ass, but we got to do it. This is sort of new terrain for Don Sweeney, I think, and, this is why they gave him the extension. Now he's going to prove it. It's really easy to go low ceiling all the time. You got to try to drive the car through the roof. Got to try to do it, I think. And this summer might be an interesting spot for that.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. No, a lot of tough calls to make, a lot of different options out there, and we'll dive a lot more into it as the offseason goes on.
And I say this right now, like knowing full well, like I don't know what the right move is. I really don't. Like I like Larkin. I think you should aim higher. If you can't aim higher for whatever reason, that player not available, he doesn't want to come here, blah, 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 whatever, then sure. But like, I think you have to avoid making a big move for the sake of making a big move, right? Because you feel that pressure, right? Like if you race out to get Dylan Larkin and then Robert Thomas goes for a package that's like 1 piece more, 2 pieces more, I'm kind of like, damn, I kind of wish you went for that one instead. This is, but then again, there's also the part where like you're on the sidelines because you nibbled along the edges for a little bit too long, right? And so like the Bruins been burned by that before as well, where they go out and they get Marcus Johansson because they don't want to pay the freight on Mark Stone when that freight turns out to age pretty poorly for Ottawa, and you're kind of like, wish you kind of went all in there, So I don't know the right answer for this. I just know that not getting that pick this year really, really throws a massive wrench in all of this conversation.
It sure does. And yeah, I didn't want to bring it up, but it really does screw everything up, whether it's flipping that for another legitimate product. I saw like a trade rumor that was like, honestly, if you're Toronto, just flip like the first overall pick for Robert Thomas. I'm like, shit. Like, I can't believe they
Right.
would probably do that. And it would
You're
be
like,
great. I
damn.
bet he'd be awesome.
Yeah. No, it's
So,
true. Like and you mentioned Zaka earlier, and I know you and Evan talked about this. If you can parlay Zaka and your own pick to move up
23.
in the 8 to 12 range, I'm doing it. Because then you're kind of opening the door there for bringing in that defenseman, which may make you more willing to make some other trades involving the prospect pool. So I feel like we're not going to have a good read on what they're going to do until draft night. I feel like it may go down to the wire there where they're like, they either stick with the pick they have, or they're like, you know what, let's move up, or let's move this as part of a hockey trade. We got the 28 picks. We'll figure that out when they come. But like, I feel like this is going to go down to draft night, and who knows between now and then if another player becomes available. And Nico Hischier, like I mentioned Robertson and Thomas, and sorry for rambling here. Hischier's another guy that I'd be willing to like sell a lot for, because I think
beast.
I think he is a really, really good player and would be an exact fit for what this franchise wants out of their top line centers.
Yeah, at this point, it feels like every other week we've got something new. Like very well next week it'll be like it's going to be a King's ransom for Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas will be like, I'm out. Like, who knows? Like the fact that you've seen it now with Kachuk and Hughes, and like you're seeing it more and more. It's kind of like the NBA where these players are getting empowered. But no, I want to go here.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's kind of concerning that a lot of them want to go just to Vegas or Florida or Dallas or something like that. But again, Gary Bettman would be like, "Hey, dipshits, it's not a problem in our league." But again, I digress. But no, it does feel like every week though, leading up to it. I agree. We're not going to get, I think, clarity, if even that's going to be the case, until the draft night. But every week it feels like there's something new that's popping up as far as movement this year. The fact that the salary cap is what it is and the free agency class sucks. Like you got a lot more teams being aggressive. It's a lot up in the air, but it should, you hope, be a really interesting offseason as far as the avenues the Bruins and a lot of other teams can take to make their teams better.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, like it's so hard, right? Because like I think when you're so talent starved, I feel like a buffoon sitting up here and saying, no, you can't trade all that for Larkin. It's like, okay, well, it's either that or another year of hoping, Matt Poitras makes a team and Lindholm's back holds up. And so like, they're so starved for talent that like, I have a hard time saying, no, you can't make moves for that guy. It's just, I want to aim for the moon right now. Right. Yeah. I just do. It's just, I feel like we've hit the point now where we realize that star power wins unless you have a multi-year build like a Carolina. And I think for the Bruins, like, yeah, they can start that process to be the Hurricanes, but I feel like their natural inclination is to try to get the star power, try to get that player. And I think Cam can acknowledge they need this, they need that, they need to be patient. It's not in their nature. They've never been patient, right? Mm-hmm. And so if a Larkin becomes available, if a Thomas becomes available, if a Robertson becomes available, they're going to be players until they're not. And so it's just, I'm just dying to know what they get into and how they get into it. I reported back in February that they wanted Robert Thomas, but the price was just so high they couldn't stomach it. That appetite is still there. It's still there internally. They still want to make that move. It's just, do you do it? I don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. A lot more to dive into because I don't think those rumors are going to end anytime soon. Ty, before we wrap things up, again, want to give a shout out to the CLNS Media Network. Again, subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel. And it's not just the Bruins over at CLNS. You got Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access. If you're a Boston sports fan, CLNS has you covered every step of the way this summer. Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at 985thesportshub.com and on the air, 985 The Sports Hub. Listen on the app as well. I'm there all the time. You can also find me on social media. To search my name, I will pop up. That's where you can find me. How about yourself?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins offseason, whether it's trade rumors, free agency, the draft, dev camp coming up, all that good stuff. We have you covered every step of the way over at BDC and the Boston Globe. So please subscribe there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, you can at Conor Ryan _ 93. Ty, thank you once again for talking hockey with us. This was episode 435 of Poke the Bear. Again, this episode is sponsored by the CLNS Media Network and Prizepicks, the best way to win this playoff season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, this was episode 435 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.